All right, everyone, welcome. It's Chris Petri, and welcome. We're having some fun here. We're going to create a beautiful painting. We're going to use a photograph on our electronic device. I'm actually using my phone here, and I looked up, if I zoom back here, you'll see I have my cell phone here. So I'm zooming in, and this is Cadaques, Spain. So we're going to actually do this painting here. We're going to draw first, do our preliminary light sketch. So we're going to do the step-by-step preliminary light sketch. Then we're going to do our contour drawing. And then we're going to begin and we'll do our alla prima painting. So here we're not going to do maybe so much as a glazing technique, but we're going to just do an alla prima painting where we start off mostly with the darks in the painting. There's some really beautiful trees and shrubs and interesting darks and shadows here and there in this painting. So that's a great place we can start with some darks, get some darks onto our watercolor paper and in our painting. And then we can start working in some of the other medium tones and then finish up with our lighter tones. And we also mix it up too as well. We're not, with alla prima, you're never locked down into any one particular technique. You're kind of just going into it and basically having the idea you're going to paint everything at one time for the most part, versus doing a technique where you might do all glazings one at a time, going from light to dark. So in the future, we'll do more glazing technique. We always mix up glazing technique versus alla prima. It's good to know both techniques really well. Helps you in your watercolor painting incredibly. So here, again, I just went online, researched a couple photographs online of Cadaques, Spain, and I thought this one was really beautiful. There's like a waterway where people are swimming and relaxing and enjoying a great time on the beach here. And if I zoom out a little, you can see that. So that's the beach there, and there's some water, and there's some beautiful homes and apartments and things along this waterway. And looks like that's a church in the distance there. And I'm going to try to... Let's see if I can get that back. So here, there we go. That's the only thing with working with phones and things like that. So what I actually did is I searched out this beautiful picture on my phone. Then I did the same thing with my laptop. So I set my laptop across from me where I'm painting on my painting board. So I have a table. I'm standing. I have a table, and my board is just, tilted a little bit upwards. And I have my laptop to my right, and that has the picture, this same picture here. So I'm going to be working from a laptop, which is a little bit larger. So the picture is a little larger, obviously, the photograph that we're working from. So I encourage everyone, if you can work from a larger picture than this, you're going to be better off. You'll see it a little better, the composition. But even if you work from an iPad, that should be plenty good. Sometimes a cell phone's a little small, although you could start off with your cell phone like this, get the overall idea of the shape of the scene, the shape of the undulation of the buildings, and then you can zoom in with your phone to certain sections as you're drawing maybe and sketching. Hopefully we're contour drawing. I'm always trying to promote contour drawing. I think it's a beautiful way to go with your drawings. And okay, so let's start out. We'll do our preliminary sketch. Again, I looked this up on my cell phone, found my picture I wanted. Then I went onto my laptop, set my laptop up across from me on my art table, wherever you might work. If you're working in a chair, you might be able to set up a little small table across from where you're working, or if you find that you like to work on a kitchen table, you can set your laptop right on the kitchen table. That's very convenient. And you can do it that way. And this way you have a larger photograph to work from, or picture. All right, so let's get started here. We'll zoom out. All right, excellent. have my mechanical pencil. This is a number 7 mechanical pencil, and these are great if you're working, doing contour drawing, and you're going along doing your drawing. You can easily just click your pencil, and instead of having to maybe worry about sharpening your pencil as much. So I sometimes use an office pencil, though. Those work great too. All right, so let's start out here. I'm going to do my typical, as we're preparing, we're going to want to make some hash marks on our drawing. Another great reason to have tape on our watercolor paper is you can make some notes on your tape to help with laying out your drawing and your painting. So let's do that. So here I'm noticing that the building on the left is just about right there, almost to the top of the page. And then I'm looking at the other opposite side of the page, and that's about halfway. The building's on the right-hand side. So I'll make a mark over there. That's where the buildings are. And the water is about 2/3 down to the bottom of the page and you could put a W for water, and put a B for buildings. And this is a really enjoyable scene. It's not that complex, actually. There's a lot of detail in it, and we're going to explain how we're going to make it more, we're going to sort of tone down some of the details in this painting. Some artists I know are going to look at that photograph we have of Cadaques Spain and say, oh, there's so many details in it, I can't do it. But that's not true. You can do this painting and this drawing. You just minimize the details in it. You almost just think in your mind, how can I simplify this scene and not really get overwhelmed by all the detail, and we're going to do that. We're going to do that as we go here. So we're going to get the main, let's say, the main points of interest and where they are on the painting. So that church steeple is about here, about 1/3 of the way across. So if that's 1/3, so that's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So about 1/3 this way from the left to right is the steeple. Okay, and once you really do this a lot, you won't have to really maybe make so many hash marks on things. But since we're trying to get a real accurate drawing here, somewhat accurate drawing, and we'll take our time. And then here we have our there's a wall there's a wall here along where the water is, and that's about here. There's a wall here, and we can kind of see that in the scene, the beach is a little bit lower over here where the wall is, so we'll say about here. So it's slightly lower than this side. So the water over here is slightly higher than over here on the left side. So we'll just remember to do that. Water. And that's it. I think that's all we really need. Now we're going to just do our preliminary sketch. So once we have some hash marks on, so we can kind of have an idea, let's do a super light preliminary sketch just to see if we can get everything set on our drawing correctly. So I'm going to start here. I'll start off with the church steeple here. And again, I'm going to contour draw this, and I'm going to just try to get a sense of what's here. It doesn't have to be perfect, of course. Sometimes you might start your drawing and then realize you're kind of maybe having an issue. It's not going to be perfect usually, but and now I'm going to do the building up here, and this looks like it's slightly tilting a little bit. It's an optical illusion, I believe. And then here, the details don't have to be exact at all. And again, we're just doing a light, super light sketch just to get everything pretty good. And there's going to be some times when there's some difficult angles. That's where you might maybe just try. I would try myself here. I think I'm just going to try to get maybe the tops of the buildings more accurate. I'm not going to worry about all the. We're going to come back and do a little more drawing in here, a little more accurate drawing. Let's say we're just trying to get the overall idea. And then we have this here. And then once we get beyond this church, then we don't have to worry so much. We just see a lot of detail there. And I think if we just I'm really just making random angles and to get the overall idea there. And then at this point, even though this is the preliminary light sketch, I'm going to take a break because I'm starting to, we've been working, 15 minutes or so. 10 or 15 minutes, so let's take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll continue doing our light sketch, preliminary light sketch, and then maybe we might have most of it worked out where we don't have to do a whole lot more, but at least let's take a break, give ourselves a bit of a rest here, and that'll help us to relax and be a little more focused as we come back. Okay, we took a break. It's always good. Again, take a few breaks here and there as you're going. Really helps to stay focused once we take some breaks. And so we have quite a bit of our preliminary sketch done. We did the church, the undulating shapes of the church. Rooftops and the top portion of this church here, the spire, and we worked our way around, and then we kind of just did some, kind of random angles, just kind of looking at the drawing from us and in front of us. And again, I have my laptop set up across from me to my right, so I keep looking over to my right as I'm drawing, looking back and forth at my paper, keeping an eye on my pencil as I'm going, and looking back and forth at my drawing. And now that we have this pretty solid, the actual silhouette of the top portion of the drawing, then we can start getting into some more details here. I was working over here. This contour drawing is probably, I'm going to stick with this. I don't think I'm going to go over this again. I think I'm getting a pretty good feel for it. But I would suggest, if you're doing this drawing for the first time and you need some more time with it, definitely maybe do a super light sketch first, preliminary drawing, and then you can go back in if you think you need more time. And there's a couple of trees here. I would line up the architecture, so these buildings tend to like all of these windows here line up with the arched doorway here, so I want to make sure I get that accurate. And then there's a few windows on the sides here. And there's a roof over here and building, so that kind of obscures that a little. And there's another rooftop over here. And I'm just trying to, as I draw, keep looking at the distances between each thing I'm drawing. So these are rooftops, so I'm looking at the roofs and trying to look and scale everything. So I say this rooftop is this large, and the next one, as I look across from me, is a little larger, so I go a little larger with that one. And I just keep going. And then there's another rooftop here in between here, and again, it doesn't have to be exact. In all honesty, there's so much going on in this scene that as an artist, you have to just realize that no one's going to be looking at one particular area in this scene when you paint it and draw it. They're just going to be looking at the overall picture. So some things you can improvise and create things that look good to your own opinion. So here I'm going to continue. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just get a light preliminary line here where the water is. That helps me as I'm drawing over here to know where I'm trying to. And the water's about almost halfway on the page. If this is the center of the page, the water comes in about almost to the center, not quite. And then it goes out like this. There's kind of a sharp point there. And then the beach comes across this way, all the way over. And then we have that wall there, just like that, so that's good. This building is and again, I'm just sort of trying to get the feel here, and there's some chimneys on top of this rooftop over here, and there's an arched doorway here. And you can leave some things out. That's really a great feeling if when you're creating a drawing and you painting, you just, as an artist, you say, oh, I'm going to take my own liberty here and just adjust things that's going to make it easier for me. And that's what you do. You just take some, you maybe draw in some things and you leave some things out. And that's what I'm going to do here. I'm not going to draw every window, every detail. I'm just going to go and okay, and there's some trees in here. Sometimes I draw and then just leave something go for a few, just so I can get some other lines to help see where I have to. Okay, and there's a doorway here. And so we're just continuing on doing our contour drawing. And again, if you can make things up actually as you go, but you know, in a sense, if you see a couple angles, you can do the angles and just let them flow. Because you know when you're doing this painting, when you see an abundance of details, as in this scene, again, no one's going to be measuring, counting how many windows that you put in or lining up angles of things. You can pretty much, you have a lot of freedom, I would say. When you have a painting with a lot of details like this, you're actually, believe it or not, it's almost easier to paint and draw a scene like this because you have more freedom. There's so much going on with it that, you know, you can, again, take a lot of creativity and artist liberty as you're going, and no one's going to notice. And we have some darks here. So there's some bushes over here behind this rooftop, and again, lots of interesting things. I'm just going to capture a couple rectangles, a couple squares. There's and that's what I'm doing now. I'm just looking at my picture, my photograph, and just and that should be good. That's enough details over here. I just want to make sure I get these a couple windows. Okay, that looks good. Let's keep going here. And then along here, it looks like we have an awning, and then we have some trees. Interesting, some shade over here. There must be some tables and chairs over here. Maybe there's a restaurant here. And so we have some. Okay, and then you can see I really kind of have most of the drawing complete now. We have the bushes over here, and that's by the church here. And there's some more rooftops here. So we're going to just do some more roof. Okay, now I'm starting to lose my concentration. Now's another good time. We'll take another break right now, and we'll relax 5-10 minutes, and we'll come back and we'll finish up our drawing. I think we can finish up our drawing now at this point over here on the left side, and we should be good. Okay, so we took a little break, and now we're just let's go back and look one more time. Just take a look at our cell phone here. And we'll take a look at our finished painting, our photograph of what we're going to be doing here, Cadaques, Spain. And so you can see the only thing left really to draw that we're doing now is right over here, this archway and this building on the left, and a little bit of the trees, I think, here we have to finish up, and right in here. Other than that, most of the painting our drawing is all completed all around here. So we pretty much have worked our way through the majority of the drawing. And you can also minimize your drawing a little bit if you want to. You can concentrate most of your effort around the center of the painting, and as you go out toward the outer edges of your painting, you can always minimize the drawing and just put in a few very sparse details with drawing. And then when you go in and do your painting, so when we go in and do our painting, we can add a little more or a little less details as we would like with our brush and paint as we do that. So we'll zoom back out and we'll continue on our drawing. I did draw most of this pretty much as accurate as I could, doing my contour drawing. And now I'll finish up over here on the left-hand side, the lower left-hand side. So now I'm going to try to find where I am over here on these sections that I already completed. So that's the main thing, is always trying to relate. Like in contour drawing, is basically trying to relate your drawing to where you've already put down your information. And then as you move along in your drawing, you're scaling everything to what you've already completed. So you can kind of say, well, I made this roof over here. Now I'm moving to the left, and what do I see in my drawing? In my photograph, I should say. And then we can kind of look from there and see what we have. There's a lot of information here. I'm going to simplify it and just and there's some trees here. Then I'm going to try to find where this building starts. It starts about right where the window is up here. So a little bit to the left of that. Then I try to look over here and I say, all right, these are the trees over here. Now this is where I'm going to try to merge the right side of my painting or drawing with the left side of my painting. So here, my trees are a little bit higher than over here. So I lost, actually I did all right here. I just have to make these trees a little bit taller, no big deal. And that actually cures the issue. So I just didn't make these trees over here tall enough on this wall. Now that I do that, I see that it actually matches up pretty decently. And again, we don't have to do everything exact. So we have some trees over here. This pretty much stays the same. And then as we work our way over, we notice the archway is here. Then we have this, and I have a little bit of a okay, the archway starts about here. And again, perfection is not required here. I'm just trying to get this. We want to get this arch really good. That's pretty good there. And then we see that it's some shadow under there. And then the wall goes here. And again, you can improvise a little. I'm going to leave this a little bit, not as much detail. I think if we get this archway in here, that's going to look really good. And if we have to, we can do a little erasing. We'll just bring this over here. I just moved this wall over here a little bit, where the water is. Then we have our arch here. And then there's some darks here, some bushes and trees in the distance, actually. And there's some buildings over here. And again, you have the option to do a lot of improvising on something like this. So you don't have to get every detail. You can really pick and choose where you want to add, where you add your details and so forth. And These are the upper rooftops where the clay tile are, the orange clay tile. There's some and I think just that little bit of detail is fine. And maybe I'll put this light over here. And we can have some figures over here. These are people enjoying the day here along the beach, relaxing, and a few figures here really make it look good. Okay, so that's pretty good. That's our drawing. It's pretty much there. Again, always remember, if you see a lot of details in a drawing or in a scene, that's actually a really good thing because you can improvise a lot when you're drawing. You don't have to really get everything accurate as long as you're picking up good angles and getting things somewhat accurate to what you're seeing in the picture. You're fine. You don't have to do every single detail. Here I see I didn't get this. This is like a small roof here over by these trees and a couple windows and a couple more windows here. And I'm going to make those marks for the clay tiles, just so I remember. All right. That's going to be dark there. And then we have a few people walking here. And the archway, and all right, again, we finish our drawing. Let's get prepped now. We'll get ready to go in and we'll start our painting. And again, we're going to go and do our darks first, get some of our darks going in our painting first, and that's pretty much really sort of the method I like to show is like alla prima. We're just going to go through this painting, not so much do a lot of glazings, but just try to get our darks in first, some of our medium darks, medium tonal values, and then we can see how it shapes up from that point, and then we can just add in the rest of the lighter tonal values toward the last bit of our painting. Okay, so let's take a break again. We've completed our drawing. We'll come back, we'll start painting. Okay, and we're back from our break, and I just put some paper towel over my paints here just to keep them moist. I just dampen a paper towel and then just rest it over the top of the paints. I have my palette taped down to my foam board here so it doesn't move around when I'm painting. That's a big help, and especially for videos here when I'm doing videos. So I'll tape this back down again and we'll chat as we go here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you a quick informational tidbit here on sort of what I can consider just the two main styles of watercolor. If you're painting watercolors all the time and you probably already do these things, so you're probably really familiar with them. I may call them something different than you do. So as an artist, we all have different things we've learned from different studying and different people we follow on YouTube and in books and on videos and all that, and all the pro artists out there and the old masters and all the information that we gather as we're going along. But probably most of you will be familiar with either alla prima painting or glazing method. So what I'm going to do here is, just before we start, this is the painting again that we're going to, so the drawing we completed, right? We got the drawing done and we took several breaks to get through it. It's a challenging drawing. You can do it a lot more simple than this. I like drawing tremendously, contour drawing tremendously, so for me it's a lot of fun doing this type of drawing. But I know a lot of artists, watercolor artists, and from all the comments you send me and everything, and I realize some people don't like as much drawing, would rather paint more. So some of you rather just get into the painting quicker and maybe just do a quick sketch. So we'll kind of cover both things quickly before we start to paint. But this is again, I found something, Cadaques, Spain, Barcelona, Spain. Beautiful scene here along the water. And I really like this photograph, so I just picked this one and said, let's go for it. So that's going to be what we're going to paint, and we already drew this scene. So you can maybe, if you're on a phone, you could even do a screen capture of this maybe. Or you can find this online if you just type in Cadaques Spain, Cadaqueus. And, okay, we'll zoom back out. So what we're going to do is, I'll just maybe do a quick, find some paper here. All right, so I'll take some paper and I'll get a pencil here. So I'll use a China marker just so that's a little clearer to see on the paint page here. So if we do it the way so what we did here is we did the contour drawing. So we took our time and we did all the fine drawing all throughout the page, and we pretty much got all the details, and we drew pretty much all the main details. We left some stuff out, as we said, when we were drawing, right? So that's the first style. And then a second style we can do, let's say this is going to be our alla prima. So this is alla prima style. And then this will be glazing. That's not writing too well. And I just want to do this beforehand so we kind of can see that you can approach this painting, even though this video I did it a certain way. You can do it. You can make a change to it. So maybe you'll watch the video full through one time, and you'll start it again and try to. You would be going in and doing the work and drawing everything and painting everything. So for more of a glazing technique, we might. We're doing the same thing, but we're not doing as much detail, and maybe we're going a little quicker. Just kind of, we can get the. So we would take our time and get the real important things here. That would be like the undulating skyline with the buildings. And then we would get the water, of course, and the beach area in the front here, and the side of this building. And then we'd capture some details. We put in some of the trees, same as over here. And so these are the two, but more I'm trying to impress the painting style. So with glazing technique, we don't get as many details. We're not putting in windows with our glazing technique. We might put a few just to say, okay, there's some windows here and there and some other rooftops here. Alla prima, we're maybe doing more. If you like to draw, you're going to draw in more of the details. But the painting aspect of it, this is where just a quick idea of, so for alla prima, we're going to be going in and we're going to be going in with our darks first, getting those pine trees in the painting, taking our time, starting off with the darks. I mean, this for the alla prima, we're going to start with the darks and get some of those darks and get them established as we're going, taking our time and as we go. So that might be where we're going to, if we're doing alla prima, which I'm going to do, we're going to do that, get the darks established, maybe get some of the dark windows in there. We start to do that, right? We're doing more of the darks around the painting, also working in some of the shadows with some blue. So, over here, we're starting to get some of those blue shadows in and some of the gold, some of the yellow ochre in some of the buildings too. So there's the light coming in the scene from the right. So we just remember we're going to put our light insignia at the top of the painting. Some of the areas are going to have shadow. Some will be more light with the golden color of light. This is probably around this time of sunset. But that's the approach for alla prima. Now for glazing technique, which is a little quicker, a little more energetic, we're going to go with our blue and sky colors. And we would start with the sky first and start working the sky colors in. A little more water. So here was a little less water in the alla prima. Here we'd be going with more water. And then we'd start working right down, since we're glazing this in steps, maybe 2 or 3 different glazings. We would keep going with the glazing here and I'm just mixing up a little bit of color in the sky instead of having it all. And then here we would look and say, okay, the shadow side is over here, so we would work the glazing right down the page in the shadow sides of the building. And that way we're kind of getting a lot accomplished. We're getting the shadows in as we go down the page with our glazing. This over here is in light, so we want to preserve the white paper over here for that building on the left-hand side. Does that make sense? So we're sort of looking at back and forth at the photograph, and wherever there's shadows, we work that sky color down in there, and then down here at the bottom of the painting there's more shadows, and then we would put in our water too as well, get our water in. That's reflecting the sky pretty much. So we would get the water in here too. And again, I'm going to try to see where I see some shadows tying down in there, maybe here and there. And that makes a nice pleasing effect if there's shadows sort of tying all through from the sky down like this. And then there's a door there, so we can put some shadow in the doorway there. So does that make sense? That's the glazing technique, really in a more simple idea where I'm trying to show you the difference now. So when I'm creating my painting now, I'm going to be doing the alla prima this time. Maybe we'll try this again and we'll do the painting with the glazing technique. And I cover both on my, as you know, if you aren't subscribed, I just want a shameless plug here. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Consider subscribing. We're doing paintings like this all the time on my channel. So just a little informational. And also I like to say that I also have a second channel, and that's Watercolor in 5, all capitals, Watercolor in 5, and it's on YouTube. And I just started that Watercolor YouTube channel just recently, and it's covering all these type of details that we're doing right here, right now. So a lot of times I'm not going to take time out and stop and do this sort of an informational, as we're doing a painting. But I wanted to really do it because I wanted everyone to see between the two techniques really, and how one is different from the other, glazing versus alla prima. But I'm going to be covering those type of things as well as all the different brushes I use and paints and palettes and all that good stuff on Watercolor in 5. And that's I've just had that for about 4 months now, that YouTube channel. It's working out good too. It's a lot of fun. We have fun there. And they're quick 5-minute videos or so, 10 minutes. Okay, so we're going on here. We're just, moving on. And so glazing and alla prima. And then, of course, with the glazing technique, once we're at this point, we're just going to start doing these features in the painting. You can start putting in the trees and the interesting darks. Once you've done that first glazing, then you're going to start working into your darker darks. And you can kind of fuse both together, which looks great. So as this is damp, a little damp, not too much, we've been chatting here for a few minutes, and you can kind of see, look, it's drying a little bit, the paper. So I can start going in and putting in some of these darker colors where the trees are, and then the water here is a little darker, like that. And we'll have so just a general idea. And then, we start putting in some of the darker darks with the burnt umber and French ultramarine blue, and we start putting in some of the windows and doorways and things, and you can have a lot of fun with the glazing technique. I like using this technique a lot too, as well as the alla prima. I use both all the time, and it's fun. You can kind of interchange them. When you start to paint a lot, you'll find you'll start to use both of them a lot, and you'll interchange them as you go. Okay, let's get into the painting. But before we do that, let's take a quick break here, and then we can get into starting the painting, and we'll have a lot of fun. All right. Well, we'll take a 10-minute break or so. Okay, so we're going to get back and start with our painting now. I just have a bucket of clean water, and we have, you can see, fresh moist paints, and I'm going to start in and we'll do some darks here. We'll make some, let's sap green, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue. That makes a nice dark green. Putting in the tree here, this is really cool. This is kind of a nice dark here. Starting out with the darks, we're doing alla prima method. Start with the darks first. Get those established. And then we see the little bit of raw umber. Burnt umber, raw umber. It lightens up a little bit in this archway here. And I'm just going to do the details here as we go. A little darker up top. These are a little darker here. So I add a little bit of French ultramarine blue to darken up the windows there. And again, when we're painting, we always want to keep in mind that this is just one very, very small part of the whole painting. So always try to relax when you're painting, because no one's ever going to go in and look at one spot on your painting. The painting is usually looked, when someone is viewing your painting, it's going to be from the whole scene. They're going to see the whole painting. So when you're just doing these smaller sections as you start out, no worries. You don't have to be perfect with anything. You're just trying to get in the basic shape of things and the basic tonal value. So you want to try to get how dark things are or how light they are as you're starting. And what's fun about alla prima is you start out with your darks, and this way it's sort of a little easier to work with the darker tonal values, because they're real easy to see when you look at the photograph. So when I'm looking over my photograph, I can kind of see all the darks are pretty much, they really are simple to sort of see in the scene. So I can sort of, and I think here, there's so many interesting details in this painting, I can really zip around pretty quick here and get some interesting. And I'm not going to be perfect with everything. Maybe some take your time on, make a perfect square there. Then on another one, just make a quick little. That's interesting to see that in a painting when some details are perfect and some are just, can be a little bit, or all of them can be a little bit just haphazard, and doesn't have to be any exact look to anything. And we can also, which is another good thing here, we'll change around our darks and sort of modulate them. Let's put a little bit of red in here too, a little bit of alizarin crimson, a little bit of purple, and that's going to make the darks more interesting too. If we can add just a little more color to them. And if you can imagine, if you just mix one color or two colors, let's say you just mix French ultramarine blue and burnt umber, and then you just went around and started doing all the darks like that, that's not going to look as interesting as if you sort of mix other interesting colors too. A little bit of sap green, purple, a little cerulean here. So if you can try to keep your windows a mixture, but always keeping it dark, that's all you have to remember is really, and some of them can get a little bit of a change in tonal value. Some darks are not quite as dark as others. You might see that if you look at the painting. And then I'll go back and change again. I'll get a little bit of a different dark, make a little bit darker there. I guess the thing with this, these are windows and they're pretty precise, so we would want to try to get that square edge on the top part of the window more. The bottom I don't think is as for the windows, the top of the window is more important to get that square shape. The bottom, I tend to let that, sometimes just become like a lost and found sort of look. But usually the top of the window, you'll see more of that square edge there, which happens because of the light. And I use a paper tissue just to sometimes dry off the brush a little. And we have a we have an interesting dark down here. There's a lighter light across the top where the sidewalk is along the buildings. We could leave that white for now. And then there's a and again, I'm mixing colors. And another fun thing about alla prima is you can just do sections and soften some edges like this, and then you can pick up and come back to this section a little bit later. So you can kind of have fun and move around the painting a little bit more. Glazing technique, you're doing more, going through it pretty faster, and probably with the glazing technique, you're not going to move around the painting as much as with the alla prima method. And there's some dark, and you can see I'm really just using this one mixing area here. And I'm mixing French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, sap green to get my darks here. And this is the trees. And I just have a fun time here. No real reason to worry about the trees' shapes. To me, just kind of, trees are growing upwards. So if we flick the brush upwards, we kind of get a good feel of a, once in a while, of the tree branches, and then we'll we can just do some, it's pretty dark in that section of the painting, you can see. And you can change things around, maybe make something go beyond. And there I see, and I'm going to just tap a few little splashes. Those tend to help loosen the painting up a little bit. There's some blue. That's in shadow under those trees there, so I'm going to leave that. And we can leave that as it is. And we can move around. So let's move around. We'll go over here a little bit. Sap green, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue. If things get too, you could tap a little bit of paint. As you can see, we're working around the page, doing our darks first. We can work in some we can start working in some of our roofs here, and we'll mix them up, you know. Some of them are more red, some are more brown, some might have more shadows. If we can do those little round type brush strokes on the roof areas, that's good. We could add in some blue to change up the color a little bit. Maybe this one is more exciting and bright, the color of the roof. Maybe it's a brand new clay roof tile they put in. And maybe this one's been here for a while and it's a little faded and as you can see, we're having fun. We're getting in our darks, and we're even going to do some exciting rooftop colors. The clay tile roofs here, beautiful looking roofs, and we're just taking our time having fun with this. And we can take a break now and come back, or we can continue a little more. And again, with alla prima, you can take your time. You can take a break anytime you want. You can finish a section like this, and then we'll say, well, let's take a break, and let's do that. Let's take a break. We've done some good darks here. We got our trees in. Sometimes when we take a break, we look and we go, oh, yeah, I could see I could use a little more dark there. You could charge in some darker paint. Usually around the bottom of the trees, it's going to be darker. So while the paint's still damp, you can get that darker feel on the underside of the tree area, and that's in shadow. And then we'll come back and we'll continue on. But let's take a break now. We did quite a bit of painting already, and we'll come back in just a few. Okay, we're back from another break. Perfect time to change the water in our water buckets. Let's do that occasionally. And I also wanted to mention too, if some of you might have more of a challenge with drawing, maybe you don't have as much experience drawing. I know others of you definitely have been drawing quite a lot, and but you can always just an option for you if you wanted to get more of an accurate drawing. You can always print out on a printer, print out the picture that, like whatever picture you're going to choose to draw and paint. You can, let's pretend this is a photograph. You can just print out a picture on a printer or bring it to a print shop and have them print it at a local print shop you might have in your area. And you can place acetate over it, plastic film, and then you can tape the film in two places, like both corners of the upper corners, let's say, of your film, or even just maybe two sides like this, and you can lift up and down, and you can get like a, you can just trace, let's say this, and then maybe go down and do a few like this, right? So you would go around your photograph with your plastic over top, and then you can, once you have that, you can transfer it onto paper. So then you would just take paper, the same size paper you traced it on, you'd want to use, and then you can use your pencil, and again, you tape down your plastic so it doesn't move, and you tape down your paper so it's secure, and then you just lift and you can put right underneath. You just start getting your pencil lines like that. And then if you go off a little bit, you kind of can, so you can sort of feel around your subject matter like that. And you just go a little bit at a time and check. Make sure your plastic doesn't move at all. Make sure your plastic is taped down tight as well as your paper. And you can just go right through the drawing like that. So you can get yourself a nice, gorgeous drawing to paint with exactly the way you want, like, you know, of the subject matter you want to paint. But if you just don't have that that confidence, let's say, yet, like, you know, if you're still practicing your drawing and you're not quite, and I still trace sometimes when I'm doing projects and things, once in a while I'm tracing with my plastic once in a while to get a certain angle I'm having a hard time with certain angles and things, and or with the figure. The human form is extremely difficult, painting the human form and drawing the human form. So just an idea. If you want to get a picture drawn really nicely, and if you don't want to take all that time to draw it, or even if you're decent at drawing but you want to just go through it a lot faster, let's say. So just an option you have for doing something like this, where we're doing a larger composition like this. So let's continue to paint. And again, I'm always referring back and forth to my photograph, actually my laptop. So I have the picture I chose, I have it on my laptop blown up, so it's the full size of the laptop screen. So it's almost like an enlargement, a large photograph, like a 10 by 12 photograph. And we're going to continue on. And since I have been working on quite a few of the darks, I'm just going to continue with that. Since we have the paints mixed, and we have the paints already mixed, we have I'm going to continue on, and you know, sometimes you can sometimes finger paint things a little bit to you can modulate colors a little bit of raw umber in there, make it more interesting. A little bit of cerulean blue down in the lower areas, maybe. For the upper areas would be more maybe green and gold, and then your lower areas are darker with some shadowing colors, blue and green, and you mix it up. You can change the brush strokes around a little bit. Again, and if we just do those quick upstrokes once in a while, those really read true when you're painting and trying to get those. And now I'll take my time a little more. Here can be some real excitement in your painting because you have the dark trees and the shade, and then you have some light back in here where the walls are, and maybe there's a restaurant back here, and you make some stories up as you go too. And you kind of pretend maybe there's a restaurant over here and a cafe and some people and enjoying the day. And so you're thinking there's a mystery involved here with the So behind these trees is a cafe, let's say, and then you can make a door over here. Let's make a door back over here. We'll make a nice dark here. We can make a nice door here. A couple windows maybe. And some cool shadow colors. We can reactivate some of that blue. And we'll leave some white of the paper as well. It's always good to leave some sparkles of white paper in a scene that has sunlight, like this, an outdoor scene. And I notice we're by this archway here, and this that has darks too. Let's do those. French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, sap green. And I'm constantly looking back at the picture, and I notice that about halfway and again, we're using rough paper here. I don't think I mentioned that. We're using Arches rough paper. When we use rough paper, especially Arches rough, it's an incredibly beautiful paper. You can get a lot of these little sparkles of light because the paper's rough, and it's sort of it's a natural help to getting more variations in your paintings. If you can use Arches rough paper, you'll find it really is a huge help to get some more effects and more texture in your painting. Okay, so we're really in good shape now. We've got a lot of darks in. Let's do some more over here. So these windows here. Over here on the left side of the painting, this is where I'll be more creative with my ideas on this here. There's some really interesting wrought iron railings by these windows. And these are probably some doors and things. There's little balconies and things, so I'll be a little more creative and add some interesting design to it with some details later on after we're pretty much and there's some darks up here too. And as you can see here, as we do our darks and we work around our painting, you can almost feel it's like really starting to come together and really look interesting. And so we have some really nice darks sort of modulating on the paper. So that's a place where your eyes are going to go to the darks as you're going through the painting in a fashion like this. And we do have a few more windows. Let's do those. We're going to continue. We'll do our darks. And I'm always careful to sort of watch my painting when I'm leaning my hand down on the painting, that I'm not leaning into any fresh washes that we might have just done. So and if you have a problem with a shape, you can just quickly blot it up with some tissue. If you see it's kind of doesn't look right, the shape that you make with your brush, it's better to just blot the whole thing up and then start again versus trying to straighten it out with a little bit of tissue, trying to blot out a certain section. So that's good. And there's a dark here. I should use a smaller brush. I like to use the same size brush if I can all the way through. Sometimes. And there, that works good. Trying to do a few lines and not leave some breaks in the lines. That always looks good. Now I'm careful to start to look and see where some of the darks are getting lighter now. So I'm starting with my darkest darks, and now I see there are some that are a little bit lighter. So I'm going to go in with some raw umber. So if you notice in the photograph, some are not as dark. I want to try to stay as close as possible to the tonal values that I'm seeing in the photograph, because that's real. That's real. That's a camera captured those darks and lights, all the tonal values of this scene. So if I try to stick as close as I can to those colors and tonal values as I can, I know I'm going to have a better chance at having a better result with my painting overall. Here, I didn't see this in the picture, but I'm going to try to make this connect. And I might try to do that in certain locations, try to connect up the dark areas a little bit. And this has been a lot of fun. This is a lot of fun doing it this way. Really, I can take my time as much as I want. I could say I'm going to retire for the night and take get some rest and go to sleep and wake up the next day and continue working on this. That's what's really fun about this. Doing the alla prima method here is really fun. And let's continue here. We're going to do some more darks here. We have sap green, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue. Now here I might take some artist liberty. I might make these trees over here a little bit sparser. I won't make them as dense and thick as the other ones, possibly, just to, I think it might look a little better. And you can see I'm just, kind of moving my brush around, getting interesting, and then some upstrokes for I can use some burnt umber there, French ultramarine blue just to get some different darks under here. a little more, so let's say some raw sienna and sap green. And some yellow ochre maybe. And then I'll try to blend those in a little more. French ultramarine blue, cerulean blue. This is a lighter tonal value, so this is going to be more water, less paint. The shadowing behind here. And there's some raw umber too mixed in there. In the shadows, it's got warm and cool. And some white paper too we leave. And a little splashing, just to give us the feel of the trees there. And I feel better about making it darker along the bottom here, just a little more. And what I notice is if you're looking at this, and I'm looking at this here, we're looking at it and saying, all right, how do we feel about this? What do we think? As I'm doing these trees over here, you know, I kind of think they're looking too much detail to it. And it looks kind of funny, but I know it's going to look okay because we have a lot more painting to do left here, so we won't see this as much, but it does look like a lot of information as far as a lot of brush strokes, a lot of, you know, I did some finger painting here a little bit, and there's a lot of colors, changes and things. I think it's going to be okay. It might be an issue, actually. This might cause the painting not to look as great as we would like it to, but again, I'm trial and error too. I'm doing some experimenting as I go, and as we all do when we paint. It's an experiment, you know, in the process. All right, so let's take another break and we'll come back and continue on. All right, we're back from another break and we're just going to tidy up the palette a little bit. I'm going to spray the palette, use some paper towels. We'll just start with some more fresh paint and colors. Okay, now we're going to have some interesting fun. This is a painting you can really spend hours and hours on, and that's fine. And I would encourage everyone, you know, try it different ways. Maybe try this painting like we were saying, we're alla prima. And so as we said, right now we're doing the alla prima method on this painting where we did all the darks first, and then now we're going to start working in our middle tones. And that's more time consuming. It takes more time to do it this way, but it's a beautiful look. And then we have the glazing method, which is basically going a little faster, doing the middle tones first and the lighter tones. So we would do a sky wash first and then bring the sky wash down into the shadow areas. And then sort of work in our darker tones after that. And so those are the two methods, and we've kind of did a little bit of both here, but mostly the alla prima method. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to go a little quicker because we do have a lot of detailed information on here. So since we have a lot of detail already in this picture, We can absolutely be safe with going with more of a faster approach now, sort of filling in the middle tones, and it should work fine. I might go with a few more darks, but I think let's start doing some of the middle tones here. Now, when we're doing our middle tones and lighter tones, we definitely have to change our water out so we get fresh, clean water. When you're working with the darker tonal values, you don't have to worry so much maybe with changing out your water in your water bucket, but once you start to do your lighter tonal values, you're going to want to have fresher, cleaner water. And I'll start here. We'll use some yellow ochre, raw umber, and we'll start to do this shadow over here on this side, and I'll mix in some warm and cool. And I keep a tissue in hand here so I can tap off some water to keep my brush, the colors on the brush and the water on the brush, at a decent amount, especially when we start doing the lighter tonal values. We want to be careful when we're doing our darker tonal values. You can doing darker tonal values, you're basically almost just using straight paint, and you rinse off your brush and you check a little water off on the paper towel or the sponge or tissue. When you're doing middle tones like this, we have to be more careful with the how much water and paint is on the brush for sure. And let's see here. And I'm using the same three, cerulean blue and yellow ochre. This is more of a shadow over here too. And what really can help too is just, definitely modulate colors, use different colors. That tends to be a really good way to go versus trying to just use one color. That tends to really doesn't have that much of a pleasing effect if it's all the same color in any one area. Now here, this has some really nice, I'll use raw sienna, which is a little more transparent. And again, we have to be careful when we go over those darks with a wash because they'll reactivate and can. So that's where it's good to work kind of just a few brush strokes to get some tonal value onto the paper, some color, a little bit of that beautiful golden color of the sunset here. We're in Cadaques, Spain, Barcelona. Beautiful area. There's some water down here. People are perhaps finishing up the day at the beach here, enjoying some sunshine and some refreshing water. And there's cafes along here and restaurants and all kinds of great things. And this is a fun painting to do. And I'm just going to keep working the washes here and trying to. This will dry lighter, so this looks a little dark right now, but I'll also use a little purple here maybe, and some blue. This is darker over here. And if I keep using these same colors, now I've established what my shadowy colors are for the most part. I can keep using them along And if you see that there's some light here and then some shadow, no problem. You can also make up some more shadow color over here. We can add some details over here. And let's see some more. Let's see here. I'm going faster now, so it's kind of tough to So I'm trying to work around the painting here and do the shadows, and so I'm just mixing some more color here, I see. And that really helps here. I do see some red and orange colors here, and it kind of makes a nice feel for the roofs, the clay tile roofs. And I have to add more reds here and there, and oranges for the roofs here and there. But for the most part, we're looking pretty good here. And we can continue with our just our shadow mix here, which was pretty much cerulean blue, purple, and some cobalt blue. And I see some more trees over here. We might have. You can also fill in some darks if you think there's some spots that might have you missed with the darks. No big deal. You can also fill in the darks. Once you're finishing up the painting and trying to get most of the other washes on here, so we're just going to continue on. And some darks here and there, and there's some, I see some dark red here. It must be some paint. So there's a wall here that's painted red. And maybe I'll just, makes sense to just paint this wall that color. And, you know, you can definitely leave a few places on the painting where it's just can be left with just white paper, and it's not, there's so much detail in this painting, you almost, it's no big deal. You can leave some spots where there's just some white paper here and there. And we still have to put the sky wash in. And okay, this over here, we have that nice and I put a little bit of the yellow ochre on this wall, but that's pretty much white. And once we start doing the sky color, the sky color will wrap around this building over here and make it look a lot more interesting. And we also have some ground area we're going to put in some water and some figures and so forth. And we'll do some yellow ochre and cadmium red. And this is more the shadow side. Cadmium orange, maybe. And then we just, it's darker on this side, so the red gets darker over here in the shadow, and we could add some blue to that. Again, if you go over a spot, no big deal. And we'll mix some of that with this, a little bit of blue, and And if you tend to think things get a little sloppy and I can see here I'm starting to get a little bit, I'm trying to rush a little bit here, but I mean, it's coming along okay. All right, so I'm going to take a break here, and we'll do a little more detail to this over here along this the tops of the buildings over here, because there are buildings here, and I want to capture that feeling of lots of buildings and that city feel, that beautiful city feel here in Spain. And okay, so we'll be back and we'll finish up the skyline area here, and we'll put in a sky wash and some water and some figures, and we'll be good. All right, we're back from a break, and you've made it. This is a extremely labor-intensive painting here we have, and it actually went really well so far. We had a good time. We had fun. We did our darks first, of course, and we did our medium tones, and we're ready to do the sky and the water in the beach area. And really, this part we can do a few things that are really going to help us to capture this and give us a little more of a, I would say, like a trouble-free time going through this portion. Now, again, this is the alla prima method, so we're going to try to keep maybe a little bit more of a detailed look to it. And what we'd like to do here is get a sharp, so I'm using a nice pointed round brush, and I'm going to make sure that we're going to do the sky wash now, and I want to make sure that I wet the paper along the edge very carefully, so that I don't get too much sky color running into the, especially the whites of the paper. So like this small little abutment wall here on the top of this peak of this roof here, this top of the roof, I'd like to keep that and not have any wash go over that blue sky wash. So, and I'll just go around the whole, very carefully around the whole tops, the undulating tops of our buildings, and rooftops and citadels and all the interesting details along here. Same with this one here. I might even leave a little spot of white paper, dry white paper, so you can actually, and believe it or not, if you just dampen the paper like this, just a little bit, like I'm doing here with the sharp brush, it'll keep the wash from flowing down into painting. I know there's been times, you know, where I've done a painting like this, same kind of style, using all the details, and then I use the sky wash, and the sky wash floods down over the painting, and next thing you know, I'm like rushing around, I'm grabbing the tissues and trying to blot the water up. So this actually just saves a little bit of worry about the sky wash flowing down into the painting, especially these red roofs and things, right? Red, usually, the red colors, like in my palette, I use the cadmium red, cadmium orange, yellow ochre. These colors, when they get wet, they tend to really become active, and they move around a lot, and they'll kind of get out of control pretty quick. So that's why, again, I'm doing this, especially because of the red paint on the roofs, the clay tile roofs. They're beautiful clay tile roofs. I don't want to disturb that too much. I want to try to see if I can keep that really nice clay tile roof looking good with the bright colors, the high intensity reds and oranges. So that's why I'm doing this. I'm just going around the whole painting carefully with just a little bit of water on the brush, just so that I don't have a problem with the water flowing down into the other areas, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Now I've kind of made a little bit of an insurance plan all the way across the tops of my roofs, and now we can do our sky wash. So I'll use a mop brush. We'll mix up some sky color. We're going to use the same blues we've been using all along. Cerulean blue, French ultramarine blue, cobalt blue. So we'll use a little bit of each of the blues. A little bit of purple, just a tiny bit of purple in there. And cerulean. And we'll also add some of the orange and yellow, just so that it has a bit of the same colors that are all in this area of the painting, the center, you know, through the center section of the painting. We want some of that in this blue mix. Not a lot, just a little bit. It will make everything look a lot more harmonious with the rest of the painting, so that it, in essence, and we're just doing a light wash here. I'm just going back in here. And as you can see, the water just flows really nicely. And if you do have a little bit of spots, a little bit of paper towel. And you can have fun with the brush here, the mop brush, you know, put on some good wash in the sky here. You can mix up more sky wash carefully. French ultramarine, cobalt blue, cerulean blue, a little touch of purple, a little bit of that, a little bit of the red and the yellow. And that's really perfect. That really works well, and it really, you can see how the painting's all coming together now really nicely. That, you know, when you add in the sky color, that really explains the scene a lot better with the sky color and Doesn't have to be perfect. And then we'll just do our water. We'll take that same blue and we'll just go right down in the water. We'll add some sap green to that. We should add a little sap green to our sky color too, but water is a little more, tends to have a little more green in it. And that's the, now here when we do our sky watercolor, we're going to, right away, actually we'll let this sit just a little bit. And what we'll do is we'll reflect some of these darker greens. So we put in the sky color, the watercolor, sky color first. Then we take the same wash, same color wash, move it down into the water with a little green added to it. Then as this is sort of drying a little bit, getting a little more damp and drier, we'll let that sit for a minute and we'll take our time and we'll mix up our greens that we were mixing up before. And that was burnt umber, French ultramarine, burnt umber, sap green. That was really our predominant mixture for the trees. Okay, now that we have that color mixed up, we'll let this dry a little more and we'll put some shadowing down in the water. And we'll also put some shadowing in here for the windows. But that's best done when this dries a little bit. So we'll let this dry just a little bit on the bottom. And now, since I have a little bit of time, I'm just going to take a little bit of the blue. And I'd like to just do this a little bit. Not too much being too fussy, but let's... That one spot was bothering me there with that white paper, but the rest looks pretty good. I see a spot I want to fix up a little bit. I have clean, fresh water now so that I can make some corrections here. You can see I'm trying to make this repair a little bit over here, trying to wash out that blue a little bit. That's better. Okay, so now this is dried a little bit, the water. And this is probably good to start putting some washes in of our tree reflections. So let's do that. Let's do our tree reflections. And let's remember, reflections are wavier. So we don't want to really get too fancy with them. If we just put that a little bit like this, and make sure we go plenty dark, French ultramarine, burnt umber, sap green. We just want to make sure it's dark enough. There we go. See, that's what we want, that darker. And actually, yeah, that'll be perfect. And that gives you that kind of, if you do the side-to-side kind of feel, that gives a little bit of the water effect. And then also like this. So either a little bit of wavy going back and forth, or the feeling of like that. And the same here. And wavy, some down strokes, side to side. Then we go a little darker over here, burnt umber, French ultramarine. This is a darker shadow, so we want to capture that. And we wet our brush a little bit and just... And if it goes like it doesn't look that good, that's all right. We could blot it up a little. If you mix too much of one color, you can always blot up real fast and then just go back in and like that. this here. Water's fun. You don't have to be too careful with water. It's more fun. You can just have a good time. It's reflections in the water, so no one's going to really be thinking about it too much or worrying about it and trying to figure out any details about it. It's just water's there and it's fun, and the reflections go, all different directions, and that's good. And if you wanted to put some, just for interest, a little bit of red and orange. Here and there, maybe a little spot of, and what it does is it sort of just balances the painting a little more. And we just okay, and then we'll take some yellow ochre. That's a good color for sand. A little bit of burnt umber. And we'll just do some sand here. Feeling of sand. Again, the Arches rough paper, beautiful for sand effects. If that bothers you, where you see the paint drifting up into the beach area, no problem. You could take a tissue, like that. Then I dry my brush like this and just do a couple. Okay, that looks pretty good. And we'll do some details here. We'll take some French ultramarine blue, burnt umber. I wanted to do some of the interesting details over here on the left side. So maybe some, I thought some of the just a few railings. Like that. And these are fun too, doing the details with the with a needlepoint brush, so you can have fine detail. You can render it quickly so that there's a few details here and there. So you can see you can do some fine detailing. There's some Over here you might see a little more detail closer. And then as some of the details become faint, all right, good. And we'll do some finger work here. And I'm going to make the details different colors. And I'll make the figures, I'm going to make red and cadmium red and yellow ochre. And we'll put a little shadow there. And then maybe we'll go with some different colors here. We're just making some different colors here, and just some figures to kind of make the painting look really interesting and fun. People out and having an enjoyable day. And some details we could just pretend there's some details with maybe there's some people. A few people in the water. So you can make a few details, people maybe swimming in the water and okay, perfect. So now we have really everything is perfectly balanced. Details here and there. Some just plain washes like the sky wash and the water wash, pretty simple washes. And then some simple washes along the buildings where I didn't do a whole lot of detail. So once you get in some details, you're pretty much set, and you could go back in and do a couple more details if you wanted. You could take a brush and just maybe make a couple. But I think that's good. That reads pretty good here, where it's a nice balance of detail. A nice balance of detail, and then just some free flowing watercolor paint. And now's the perfect time. This is good. We can call this finished. And if I start doing too much to the details, then it becomes just too many details. So just the right balance of details and more simple looking washes and subject matter. We'll take the tape off and see, it looks always better with the tape peeled off, and you see that nice crisp edge. And we'll zoom in a little bit. See if I can zoom in a little bit more. All right, hope we had a lot of fun. This was a longer video. Thanks for sticking in and really following along on all the details of how we created this painting. It took a little more time and a little more effort with the drawing, of course, and also the painting, but it's well worth it to do a really good size rendition of a beautiful scene like this in Spain, Cadaques, Spain. And we'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.